Good morning, everyone. Depending on where you are, good afternoon, good evening, or maybe good night, but don't go to bed. Thank you very much for attending this live session. While we are waiting for everybody to join us, let me introduce myself. My name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I teach immigration consulting at Ashton College. I'm the author of the bestseller book, 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada. You can find your purchasing options by visiting any Amazon website. You can also visit 88tips.ca to find out about your purchasing options. I have been practicing as an immigration consultant for the past 10 years. I got my license in January 2011, and I've been teaching immigration consulting at Ashton College. Many of the immigration consultants that are active today are my former students. So I'm very proud to have a lot of friends in the industry that work with me. So today, as usual, I will review some of the updates about immigration to Canada. And then if anybody has a question, by all means, you can ask your questions, and I'll do my best to answer all your questions. As you know, this is part of my live presence every Sunday at 10 a.m. EST. I am live from Toronto, Ontario, and I hope to continue these live sessions and interactions with you. Thank you, by the way, very much for following us on YouTube, subscribing to our channel, and asking your questions, or eventually hiring me and my team to represent you to the immigration authorities. So the first thing first, something very interesting happened for my business on Friday. So in a single day, the government of Canada issued work permits for 7 of my clients at the same time. And all the applications were at the Ankara office. So it normally doesn't happen like that you suddenly receive 7 work permits. But it also shows that the government of Canada is open for business, because all those work permit applications that we submitted, they were and they are entrepreneurs. They are people who are coming to Canada to create jobs for Canadians, to invest in our economy. And that shows that the government responded. Of course, they evaluated them to make sure that they qualify to do the job, and then they approve them. This doesn't mean that we don't get refusals. On the same day, I got 3 refusals, but those refusals were people that they had submitted their applications once, their application was refused, and when they submitted again, unfortunately, they refused them. But the 7 people that got approved, it was the first time that we submitted their application, and their application was approved. And as I mentioned, this shows that the government is serious about people who have invested in or want to invest in our economy. Hello, Ali Reza, good to see you here. So the group that they submitted their applications, they actually applied under a program called IMPC-11, or International Mobility Program. And this is for people who want to invest in Canada, create jobs for Canadians, contribute to our social fabric and our cultural fabric and economy. And based on that, the government issues them work permits. With those work permits, they can come to Canada and work in Canada if they approve. If they have a spouse or common law partner, then potentially the spouse or common law partner could receive an open work permit. This means that the spouse or common law partner can work for any company And if they have children, the children could study in Canada. And if they are minor children, of course, they can study in Canada. And to the best of my knowledge, at least I have worked with 4 different school boards. Those school boards offer these children free education. So if they go to public schools, and by school boards that I'm talking about is Toronto, York Region, Lambton Kent District School Board, and Vancouver. They offer them free education if the children are here. I'm quite confident that other school boards also follow the suit, the same thing, but I haven't done anything with those other school boards. So that's pretty much the story of my business. The stories that are going around in the world of immigration, it's the first one is the government of Canada has decided to expand their CIO, Central Intake Office, which is an office in Sydney, Nova Scotia. So for those of you who do not know what's going on here, Sydney, I'm not talking about Sydney, Australia. And this is sometimes very confusing for me because as I speak, I have applications in Sydney, Australia and in Sydney, Canada. And I have to make sure I'm not mixing these two together. But there is a city in one of the provinces of Canada called Sydney, Nova Scotia. And the Sydney, Nova Scotia, by the way, if you have any questions, post those questions here. I just see the questions from Laxman Thapa. I will definitely answer your questions. So post your questions, stay tuned. When I'm done with the news stories, then I will go back to your questions and I will answer your questions. So thank you very much, by the way, Laxman, to join us. And the rest of you who have joined us. So in terms of Sydney or Nova Scotia, they deal with several applications. Sydney, Nova Scotia deals with some in-paper applications like spousal applications or common law partnership sponsorship applications for outside Canada. They deal with startup visa applications. They deal with self-employed applications. And then on top of that, they deal with initial applications for citizenship to Canada, a renewal of permanent resident work permits, request for certificate of citizenship, and many other activities. So when they do, when you submit the application, they do not finalize the decision in most of those cases, with the exception of, for example, certificate of citizenship. There is an officer at Sydney, Nova Scotia. They initially review the application. If they believe that the application is complete in terms of all the documents that you needed to submit, then they will transfer it to a visa office to review it. So if it's inland, they may transfer it, for example, to the visa, to their office in Windsor, their office in London, Niagara Falls, Vancouver, other locations, Edmonton. If it's outside Canada, depending on the nationality of the applicant and where they live right now, they will send the application to that office. So this is basically what CIO in Sydney, Nova Scotia does. They do not actually finalize decisions on most of the applications. So one of the groups that they submit their applications to Sydney, Nova Scotia is called Sponsorship for Spouses or Common Law Partners who live outside Canada. The government of Canada realized that there is a huge backlog for spousal sponsorship cases. So they recently decided to expand their Sydney, Nova Scotia office. They actually expanded in terms of the number of desks that they have, and they are hiring 62 new immigration officers to process those applications. By the way, I'm not quite sure if they still accept resumes, but maybe if you are a Canadian citizen, you could consider submitting your request for to be hired, and you become an immigration officer, believe it or not. That's exactly what could happen to people. One of my good friends, who is currently an immigration consultant, he was a student in Tokyo, Japan. He was doing his master's degree, and then there was an opening from the embassy of Canada in Japan, and because he's a Canadian citizen, they hired him as an immigration officer. And believe it or not, he was an immigration officer for a while in Tokyo, Japan. And then, of course, he quit and he became an immigration consultant. So they are open to accept. Hi, greetings from Sri Lanka. Hello, hi Fuzzy, or Fazhhh. Thank you for joining us. So the other piece of news that I would like to share with you, and I'm writing the article as we speak, so when I'm done with this live session, you can find the article, and I will post the link below this video as well, about a program that Alberta has recently offered. So Alberta, for those of you who are not familiar with Canada, Canada has 10 provinces. By the way, ask your questions. When I'm done with this, I will answer questions one by one. Canada has 10 provinces. From west to east is British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, then Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and then we have New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador. So from coast to coast, we actually have 6 time zones in Canada. How large Canada is. It's the second largest landmass in the world. After Russia, Canada is the largest country in the world. We also have 3 territories: Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. So each of these provinces and territories, with the exception of Nunavut, they have their own provincial programs. And most of the provincial programs, almost all the provincial programs, they are related to economic immigration to Canada, with the exception of Quebec, because Quebec has an accord with the government of Canada. They run their own program. So even for sponsorship applications, you need to receive a CSQ from Quebec before applying for permanent residence. But if you set aside Quebec, the rest of provinces, they have agreements with the federal government, and they accept their own immigrants, and almost all of those immigrants, they fall under economic class. And economic class is mainly divided between 2 groups. One group are skilled applicants, and the second group is investors or entrepreneurs. And with the skilled applicants, it depends on their knowledge base, based on their education, based on their work experience, and it varies from one province to the other province. They're different. The other option is for entrepreneurs, people who want to invest in Canada. And pretty much all the provinces, they have entrepreneur programs, with the exception of Alberta. Alberta was very reluctant to accept business immigrants. One reason is that Alberta's economy is immensely commodity-based. It's based on the reserves of oil. Alberta produces a lot of oil, and that oil is oil sand. They export their oil to the United States of America and to pretty much most of the countries in the world. And that's why Alberta is very rich. Although the size of the economy of Alberta is not comparable. It is comparable, but it's a lot smaller than Ontario. Ontario GDP is about 760 billion. Alberta's GDP is around 280 or so billion, 260 or 280 billion. So it's about 40% of the size of the Ontario economy. However, GDP per capita in Alberta is very high, and that's because of the resources that they have. And because of the resources that they have, they cannot accept, they were reluctant in accepting business applicants. So that's the generic situation with Alberta. However, that changed recently. Just recently, the Alberta government decided to introduce a program to invite foreign graduates to invest in their economy and assist them with expanding their economy. I assume, I'm not quite sure, but I assume they are doing that because they have come to the conclusion that they shouldn't be that much dependent on oil. They shouldn't be that much dependent on just one commodity. And we saw that recently by a drop in the price of oil that they started losing money. So the program that they have introduced, it's called, and I will just introduce it briefly here. It's called Alberta Foreign Graduate Startup Visa Stream. And to be eligible to apply under this program, obviously you need to meet some minimum requirements. I just briefly explained those minimum requirements. As I mentioned, I'm posting an article about this program, and you can find it in about 1 hour after I'm finished with this live session. But I just explained this to you. So your education, it means you need to have graduated from a foreign, not a Canadian, from a foreign university or college. Your program, you need to have a post-secondary degree, and you have to have finished your program in the past 2 years. So you need to be a recent graduate. You need to show you have at least 6 months of work experience under business ownership or business senior management. And also you need to show that your knowledge of English or French language is equivalent to CLB 7. And this means that you are basically, if you take the IELTS general test, you receive IELTS 6 in every single skill of language. And also you need to submit a business plan, a slideshow to pitch that business plan. You need to start a business in Alberta. If the business is in major urban areas of Calgary or Edmonton, you need to own at least 34% of the business. If it's outside those two cities, then you need to own at least 51% of the business. However, if you're investing inside Calgary or Edmonton, then you need to invest at least $100,000. But if you are investing outside, you need to invest at least $50,000. And you need to work with, right now they have designated 2 organizations. You need to work with any of those 2 organizations, and they issue a recommendation letter for you. And you also have to have some settlement funds. So this is a very brief introduction of this program. Obviously, when I post my article, you will learn more about the specifics of this program in details. So that's basically introducing this program. This program will lead into a work permit supported by the Alberta government. And then after receiving that work permit, you can work in Canada, and then you start your business, you show that you are managing your business, and if they are satisfied, they will introduce you to the federal government, and then the federal government will issue your permanent residence. So that's pretty much it about the Alberta program. The other programs that I can talk about, there are some movements in terms of processing spousal sponsorship applications. and we see that the government is actually processing those applications. Does this mean that the backlog will be over very soon? The answer is no, because the backlog is huge. Just to remind you, in 2019, when we were in a very good situation in terms of processing spousal applications, the government processed actually issued permanent residence for 67,000 applicants under spousal sponsorship programs. But last year, I don't have the exact statistics, but I'm pretty sure it was less than 50,000. So we are behind significantly, but they are trying to enhance their processing time fairly soon. In terms of parental sponsorship, if you have been invited to apply, your deadline to submit your documents is March 14th. So it means you, within the next 7 days, actually not 7 days, by Friday, you need to submit your documents to CIO in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Otherwise, they will not approve your application. If you have received an ITA, if you have not received an invitation to apply, unfortunately, you cannot apply. And also, if your application is incomplete, they will return it to you. So you have to submit a complete parental sponsorship package by Friday. In terms of express entry, no invitations. If you recall, the government of Canada issued 27,332 invitations to Canadian Experience class under express entry in February, in early February or mid-February, and they have not made another invitation since then. So let's keep our fingers crossed that the next invitation will include federal skilled trades applicants and also federal skilled workers. Okay, so because we have so many questions, let me answer. And by the way, remember, this live session is not for immigration consultation, because immigration consultation goes beyond that. Usually in a consultation session, I sit with the client, I look at their documents, we exchange information, and based on that, I offer them official advice. And my official advice is not cheap. I charge $200 for half an hour of official advice. So when I come live, it's not that I'm offering immigration advice here. By no means this is considered immigration advice. And because my answers are brief, then it may not be complete. So don't come to the live session hoping that you can just drop some questions and then use it to assist your clients or assist yourself or your application. Don't use it. I mean, this is a dangerous approach to your needs. I know that it may sound a ton of money to pay for consultation, but when you receive official consultation, that is meaningful. Here, my effort to go live is to talk about generic issues. And if I answer something, this definitely not constitute immigration advice and may not apply to your case. Although you may think that it applies to your case, but it may not apply to your case. The immigration law in Canada is a complex thing. I mean, the immigration law book, and it's far away from me, otherwise I would have brought it to you. Actually, give me a second, let me show it to you. Okay, I'm back. So look, this is the book of immigration law. You know, this is, of course, an older version. But anyways, that's how old I am in this field. But this is the immigration law. I cannot certainly explain that to you, what is applying to you in a live session. Don't expect that, just to lower our expectations. Okay. So let's go to the questions. When open tourist visa? So basically, the tourist visa application process is not closed. It's always been open during pandemic. The problem is that right now, if you submit a temporary resident visa application, the immigration offices will not process your application, or they will process your application with significant delays. So it may take them weeks or even months before they actually process your visa application, unless you go through another process. And the other process is that you are visiting an immediate family member who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. You are visiting an extended family member, or you are uniting with a foreign national who is here in Canada on a study permit or work permit, and they are living here in Canada. And these are different scenarios. So if you're visiting an immediate family member in Canada, if you already have a visit visa, then you only need to present to the authorities that you are actually the immediate family member of that Canadian citizen, like, for example, your marriage certificate or your birth certificate showing the family chain, a support letter from them, things like that. And you can travel to Canada. Okay, of course, when you reach Canada, you need to have a quarantine plan. You need to install ArriveCan. You need to, and if you're traveling by air, you need to quarantine for 3 days in a designated hotel, another 11 days self-isolation, those kind of things. All of those apply to you. But if you're the immediate family member of a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, and you already hold a temporary resident visa, then you may travel to Canada. If you don't hold a temporary resident visa, you may apply for a temporary resident visa, but the process is a special process. And I have explained it in one of my articles recently about uniting with family members. You basically apply online for your TRV, or temporary resident visa, or tourist visa, and then you mention that your intention to travel is other, and then under the other you mention COVID-19, and that will go through another route, and they will quickly process your application. They say the processing time is 2 weeks, but in reality, at least for most of my clients, they have processed their application in about 3 weeks. And now sometimes it may take a lot longer. So that's for immediate family members. If you are visiting an extended family member who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada, in that situation, you need to fill out the forms, and basically there is a special form 0006 that your family member in Canada needs to fill. They need to send it to you. You need to sign it. It's a notarized signature. It needs to go back to them. They need to sign it, and there are a bunch of documents. Then they need to send it by email to the immigration authorities. They will review the application. If they are convinced that you are an extended family member, then they will issue you an exemption to travel to Canada. If you do not hold a TRV, then you also need to apply almost concurrently. You need to apply for a TRV. You need to apply for TRV and explain that you are visiting an extended family member. Another example would be if you need to come to Canada for an emergency. For example, you are coming to Canada for attending a funeral of a loved one, or if you have a close family member who is in Canada and they have a terminal disease, they are dying, then you can apply for an exemption to travel to Canada. That exemption is issued by the health authorities of Canada. You need to submit that request to them, and if they approve it, there's an online form, you submit it, and then if they approve it, you have the ability to travel to Canada. The other issue is that you have an immediate family member, like a husband or wife, or a father or mother, who is on a work permit or a study permit in Canada. They are full-time in Canada. You want to visit them. In that situation, you need to apply for uniting with your family members. The process is, to some extent, somewhere between immediate family member application and extended family application. But at the end of the day, you present enough documentation, and then with the help of those documents, if you receive an exemption, you may travel to Canada. Again, if you don't have a visa, then you submit the application online, and on your visa application, you mention that this is for COVID-19, and also present all the documents for exemption. So these are different scenarios that people could actually receive tourist visas and they can come to Canada and travel to Canada. And as I mentioned, regardless of how you reach Canada, even if you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident in Canada, you need to quarantine for 14 days. And the first 3 days, if you're traveling by air, will be at a designated hotel. So that's the whole story as much as I can explain. So when open border visit visa starts. So in terms of when the borders will be open, we don't know. Obviously, the government recently even made it more difficult for people to travel to Canada. When they implemented the new program, we actually saw a huge drop in the number of people who travel to Canada by air. For example, I believe in the first 2 weeks of February, only 95,000 people traveled to Canada by air. And of course, many of those people were Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada who were going to come to Canada before the mandatory quarantine hotel requirements kicked in. By the way, I have articles about quarantine hotel and videos about quarantine hotel and uniting your family members, extended family members. I will post the links below this video when I post the recorded version. And then the second week of February, that number dropped to 65,000, and it's nothing. To show you how low that is, for example, in usual days, in normal good old days before the COVID-19, almost 106,000 people on a daily basis, they just traveled to Toronto Pearson Airport. And we're talking about one airport in Canada. Of course, this is the largest airport in Canada, but we have many large airports in Canada, like the Montreal Airport, which I believe is the second most populated airport. We have the Vancouver Airport and many other airports. And so 65,000 comparing to the good old days is nothing. So that's the answer to you right now. The situation is not good. The government doesn't want people to travel to Canada, and they have made it more difficult. However, they are rolling out vaccines, and actually the vaccination is now going very well in Canada. About 400,000 people receive vaccination every week in Canada, and in probably 6 or 8 weeks, we will see that our most vulnerable people are completely vaccinated. And that means everybody who is 65 years old or older, or people who have complications. And then another 2 months, probably most of the population will be vaccinated. And that's when we will see some relief in terms of border. We will see that they will open the borders again, less restrictions for travelers. Remember, at the end of the day, Canada thrives because of an amazing tourist industry. Where I live in Toronto, in a typical summer, and I'm talking about my neighborhood alone, people from at least 150 different countries visit my neighborhood. They come from all different countries. So I'm pretty sure that this will change, and they will open the borders, but not right now. Not in the next at least 6 to 8 weeks. We won't see major positive changes in terms of border opening. And they have already closed the border between the United States and Canada until March 21st. Considering that the United States vaccination process is going very well as well, hopefully we will see that they will open the borders between the United States and Canada. And that's the major blow because, for example, every year about 16 to 17 million tourists visit Canada. And interestingly enough, out of those 16 to 18 million, 17 million tourists, about 14 million of them, they are Americans. So that's a huge number. And when we have the border closure between Canada and the United States, that's a huge blow to our tourist industry. So we will hopefully see that they will eventually open the borders between Canada and the United States. And then after that, or at the same time or prior to that, we will see also they open the borders to other nationalities. Let's keep that fingers crossed. So the next question, so that was the question from Fa. The next question is Ali Reza, will an international student need to provide the officer his or her past work experience and insurance list of that work? So generally speaking, when you're studying in Canada, you need to show that under Section 216 of the immigration regulations, you need to show that you will go back to your home country when your studies are over. Your intention, or in other words, when you're studying in Canada, you are not using this to this study permit to file for refugee. And others, I assume, because you're Ariza Rahnamai, I assume that just like me, you are originally from Iran. So generally speaking, we had an issue with Iranian students. A lot of them, they received the study permits in 2017 and 2018, and they came to Canada and they filed for refugees. So the government of Canada currently has a negative issue towards Iranian students, and they refuse majority of Iranian study permit applications from Iran. So whatever a student can do to prove that they actually meet the requirements in terms of not willing to overstay in Canada, they can do it. But when it becomes policy, honestly, you can present a ton of documents and they eventually refuse the application. So we have to be very careful with that. And this is a funny thing about the immigration process, that most of it is about policy. You know, I personally, one of the reasons that I represent clients from all over the world is because the policies for each country is different. You know, of course, many of my clients are from India, and I know what's going on with India. I mean, and most of the Indian clients, when it comes to skilled, for example, skilled immigration to Canada, we don't have that much of a problem. When it comes to study permit, it's an average. So a lot of Indian citizens, they receive study permits, but some of them get refused. And even for temporary resident visa, sometimes the government of Canada persistently refuses the visas by Indians. They do not publish their policies in terms of different nationalities, but I can tell you for sure that these perceptions exist among different local visa offices, and the way that they process applications are different. And for somebody who has dealt with several visa offices and several nationalities, actually I hit nationality number 50 just recently. So I have dealt with people from 50 different countries so far. I can tell you that the policies are different, and you have to be very careful, because nowadays I am very reluctant in accepting a study permit application from Iran, unless I'm absolutely sure that this applicant is fabulous. So it's not just about showing a bunch of documents and you see, okay, if I miss this document or not miss that document, then the situation will be different. It's about the perception of the immigration officer about these kinds of application. And right now, the perception is an international student who comes from Iran, they are not capable to pay their tuition fees, and they will eventually end up filing for refugee. And that's a very negative issue, unless you are dealing with an extremely powerful case that you say, okay, this is the way to go. So the next question is from Samira Akrafi. Can one be granted a visa after a ban for misrepresentation? So it depends, Samira. So if the case of misrepresentation is still active, You are not allowed to apply for permanent residence, for visa, or anything. And what do I mean by active? If somebody is inside Canada and they are found misrepresented and they remove them from Canada, then that person will be their inadmissibility to Canada kicks in from the day that they leave Canada. So from the day that they leave Canada for 60 months or 5 years, they remain inadmissible to Canada. If that person is outside Canada and make an application, then from the day that the officer says you are inadmissible on misrepresentation, the 60 months or 5 years begins. So if the person within those 60 months applies for a study permit, visit visa, work permit, immigration, any applications to immigration authorities, they will refuse them. Within those 60 months, your only chance, if the refusal was conducted when you were outside Canada, is to apply for temporary resident permit. I have a video about temporary resident permit. I have article about temporary resident permit, and I have represented clients for TRP applications in the past. It's under Section 24 of the Immigration Act. You need to apply. You cannot apply for a temporary resident visa. You need to apply for a temporary resident permit and say, despite my inadmissibility to Canada, I deserve to go back to Canada because of these reasons. If the immigration authorities accept that, then yes, the person may visit Canada or come to Canada and eventually receive a work permit or a study permit. For a study permit as well. So this is option for people who are outside Canada. If somebody received misrepresentation from inside Canada and they were removed from Canada, they receive an exclusion order, which makes them inadmissible to Canada for 5 years. And within those 5 years, if they want to come back, they need to apply for authorization to return to Canada on top of the TRP application. So without an ARC application, they cannot even consider going back to Canada. That's within those 5 years. But if the 5 years are over, can you apply for visa? Can you apply for work permit, study permit, or immigration? The theoretical answer and the simple answer is yes, you may. However, the officers may scrutinize your application because they want to make sure that this time the person is not cheating. They are not submitting fraudulent documents. They are not misrepresenting or hiding information, etc. And so that completely changes. After 5 years, you don't need to apply for a TRP. You don't need to apply for ARC. But however, you need to be prepared for application to be scrutinized. So that's a simple. So Ali Reza asked, the money kept in stock exchanges count as proof of means of financial support or any other properties with the stock exchange, there is a good, bad, and ugly. The good thing with the stock exchange is the stock normally is considered a liquid asset because you can easily turn it into cash. The problem and the bad and ugly is that you could lose it immediately. So I would say there is a mixed feelings towards the stock exchange by the officers. And then also you need to remember these things are discretionary by the officer. I mean, we have officers that in their past life before becoming an immigration officer, they have been chartered accountants, they hold MBAs, etc. So their view of the market and money is different from an officer who just holds a bachelor's degree in biology and they became an immigration officer. They go through internal training about different aspects of immigration or visa to Canada. But again, their past experience and their convictions are completely different. So we cannot just simply look at what we have. Remember, in the immigration process, there are two sides. One side is what you present, and the other side is the decision maker. And you never know who that decision maker is. So you could present the best case in your opinion, and the decision maker refuses the application. Right now, we have a case with the visa office in Warsaw that they kept refusing hundreds of, actually thousands of immigrants under the federal self-employed program. So what I personally did, I hired a professional lawyer, and we have filed a lawsuit against a judicial review case against the federal government. Believe it or not, this case is an ongoing case. So our hearing will be hopefully by the end of this summer, and our submission is 3,712 pages. And we are talking about hundreds of people that they were refused without procedural fairness, following the law by the immigration officers at the Warsaw office, in our opinion. Of course, eventually, this is the federal court that decides whether we are correct or they are correct. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, you are dealing with this unknown thing. And you cannot say, okay, if I do this, if I do that, will I get a positive response? No, there is no way. And I tell you this, I mean, I have students that those students are immigration consultants and immigration lawyers, because I teach an advanced course in the field of temporary visas to Canada. And those students, they know, and they actually ask for my cover letters, because I share my cover letters with those students. And probably my cover letters are a gem. I don't share it with anybody, with some exceptions that people are co-counseling with them, offering advice, etc. But does that cover letter guarantee success? No, there is no cover letter in this world. There is no package in this world that can guarantee success in an immigration or visa application. Because at the end of the day, you are dealing with another human being, but that human being, it's unknown to you, remains unknown to you, and they have completely different views about the world. They are human beings. So with immigration officers, we have liberal immigration officers, conservative immigration officers, officers that they are not that much keen to see other nationalities to come to Canada, and officers that are quite open to see other nationalities to come to Canada. Of course, the officers go through ethical training, they go through legal training, they have access to the best lawyers at their national headquarters to receive advice on how to process their application. They are always being told that you need to objectively review the applications, but at the end of the day, they are human beings like us, and that means that no matter what kind of documentation you submit, they may refuse your application. So keep that in mind. There is no holy grail in the field of immigration to Canada, and I'm telling you this as a person who has 10 years of experience as an immigration consultant. I have dealt with several visa offices in Canada. Some of the visa offices that I dealt with, they are not working anymore. I had cases in visa office in Tokyo. Tokyo is not a visa office anymore. I had a case in a visa office in Kuala Lumpur. The Kuala Lumpur is not a visa office anymore. I had cases in Michigan. In Detroit office is not processing applications anymore. So I have dealt with those ancient visa offices and new visa offices that have emerged in the past 2 years. Inside Canada, I have dealt with CIO, with CPC Mississauga, with Edmonton, with Vegreville, with Niagara Falls, with London, with Windsor, with Vancouver, you name it. And I can tell you this, that as a seasoned immigration consultant, there is no way that you ask me a question, if I submit this application, will I succeed? Okay, so you may not. So you may present a stock exchange result, and an officer may take it seriously, another officer may not take it seriously at all. So a combination of things could, of course, help yourself or your clients to have a better chance of success, but not necessarily being successful. Okay, so many questions, so I need to step up my game. So hey, okay, so many questions. Hey, my brother is a citizen of Canada. I am his extended family member. Can I visit in these days? Yes. So the simple answer is yes. If you see my recording, I explained that you're considered an extended family member. I have an article about extended family members on a video. You can watch the video, you can read the article. I have explained how you can apply as an extended family member. If you do have a visa, good for you. If you don't have a visa, then you need to apply under COVID-19 provisions for a visit visa. But the simple answer is yes. Now it is up to the immigration authorities whether to issue that exemption or not, because sometimes they don't. So in the past few months, every application that I submitted, they have been approved. So far, I had only one case that my case was not approved. And again, we go back to the same thing. You can have the best application package and the officer refuses the application. But that application that was refused was not for an extended family member. It was for uniting with a temporary foreign worker here in Canada. So, Mr. Will, how much does a USA citizen needs at minimum for the CUSMA investor program? Does USA psychotherapists can apply as CUSMA investor? So the simple answer is not about the minimum investment. It's about so many different aspects of CUSMA. And if I want to go into the details of the investor program under CUSMA, and for those of you who are not familiar with CUSMA, CUSMA stands for Canada, United States, and Mexico Agreement, which replaced NAFTA. And it comes with different subsections or subcategories. One of them are the investors or traders. The other one is professionals. The other one is the group of intercompany transferees and business visitors. And for a psychotherapist, I would personally prefer to go with the professionals option. And the other issue, it's not about investment. It's about making sure that you have the right permissions to practice. For example, if you come, because I used to be a psychotherapist. I was a licensed psychotherapist, but because of my immigration application and my master's in psychology, now I'm completing my second master in law. But I have practiced as a psychotherapist. And in Ontario, if you want to be a psychotherapist, you need to receive permission from CRPO, which is the College for Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario, to be able to practice. So if you would like to privately get in touch with us, let us look into your case and see if we can actually get the necessary permissions for you to come to Canada. It depends on, of course, on the province that you are approaching. Not all the provinces need the license, etc., etc. So the next question is from Rupinder Kaur Sandhu, sorry. Hello, I got a PPR request for family spouse visa. After stamping, do I need any permission as I'm immediate family member of PR? So the answer is that generally speaking, no. For spousal sponsorship cases, or generally speaking, for family sponsorship cases, the government of Canada is flexible. The government of Canada is like, oh, okay, I got this. Yes, this person is licensed and live in Canada already. Okay, so that's perfect. If you, Mr. Will, if you get in touch with us, we can review his or her case and see what would be the best option for that person. Okay, because we also need to look into the duration of the work permit. Depending on which option we pick, the duration of work permit will be different. And also, if the person has family members, then based on that, we need to look into what would be the best direction to take for the benefit of family members as well. Okay. And usually for CUSMA cases, we'll have internal meetings as well. It's not just me. I sit together with some of my employees. We sit together, we review the application to make sure that what we are suggesting to the client is the best option, because FTAs, they are sometimes tricky, and if you make a mistake, then that will jeopardize the whole application. So going back to Rupinder's question, so yes, if you have you received your passport request, if you have received the counterfoil in your visa, and if you have your COPR, it is likely that you can travel to Canada. However, you need to prove that you are the immediate family member of a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. You need to show all your documentation to airline. If they say you're okay, then you can travel to Canada. Now, interestingly enough, because again, this is such a new measures. I've seen cases, and they contacted me. Despite that they are eligible to travel, they didn't allow them to travel. I had interesting cases that they applied for exemption, and they said you didn't even need that application, just come to Canada. So not everybody knows how to deal with these cases, and there are constant questions and interactions between airlines and the CBSA and actually the IRCC to make sure that they can allow you to board the airplane. Again, as I mentioned, this is not an official answer to your question, but a non-official answer is that the only COPR, confirmation of permanent resident holders, that are currently can easily travel to Canada are spousal, are sponsorship cases, not just a spousal, sponsorship cases. With permanent resident, other economic immigrants, many of them are stuck outside. Okay, so I already answered Tajinder's question. The next question is from Zaidi. Oh my God, it's already 56 minutes. Okay, so I only have 2 more questions. Zaidi says, hello, Mr. Parsai. You are certainly familiar with immigration laws in Quebec. They have recently issued 3 pilot programs. One of them is for caregiver. Are asylum seekers eligible for pilot programs? So Zaidi, thank you very much for bringing this up. I am qualified, but not in Quebec. So that's the excluded area for me. I'm not familiar with the Quebec immigration program. I don't have a license to represent clients for Quebec programs, and I do not represent clients for Quebec programs. If I have a Quebec client, I have 2 very good friends. That actually one of my friends is my co-instructor at the advanced program that I told you. He is an immigration lawyer. And in case that we face Quebec programs, I forward my clients to him to deal with that. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer to your question because it belongs to Quebec. The only Quebec cases that I deal with are workers that are exempt from LMIA process. So if there's an IMP case for Quebec, I can represent them because that's a federal thing. It's not a Quebec thing. So the next question comes from Endless Walls. I really like your name, Endless Walls. Very good. Good name. Is there any chances for those people living with HIV to migrate, even though they have brother and sister-in-law residing in Canada, and they will get a petition? Thanks a lot. Your honest opinion is highly, of course. So basically, when it comes to inadmissibility to Canada because of health grounds, there are, and these are defined under Section 38 of the Immigration Act. So you could be inadmissible to Canada because you're endangering the health of Canadians, the safety of Canadians, or your presence in Canada causes excessive demand. Okay, so for health of Canadians, there are only 2 diseases that are currently make you inadmissible to Canada. One of them is untreated syphilis, and the other one is an active case of, or a positive case of, pulmonary tuberculosis or TB. So if you have any of those diseases, you become inadmissible to Canada. okay? But when you have HIV, HIV does not make you inadmissible to Canada, okay? It depends on how much it is under control, because if it has turned into AIDS and there is a problem, you constantly need medication and supervision, then you could fall under excessive demand. It shows that it will be a huge expenses that are imposed to Canadian healthcare system. But I would say probably 95% of HIV positive cases, they are not dealing with this issue. It's just the regular medications that they receive. And we now know that they actually live almost the same as other people. And this is something that is immensely under control. So we are not worried about HIV anymore. And that's why HIV positive people, in 95%, probably 98% of cases, they are not inadmissible to Canada. In certain cases, not always, in rare cases, in the past it was more common, now that it's less common, the officer may issue medical surveillance. Medical surveillance means that when you come to Canada, then you need to, every 6 months or so, you need to go to a designated healthcare facility by the province, and they run some tests on you, and this will continue usually for 5 years. They have removed the mandate for medical surveillance for HIV cases, for most HIV cases. So even encountering medical surveillance is very unlikely. Okay, so this is again an official answer. I actually consider myself one of those people who know medical inadmissibility to Canada very well, and I have dealt with medical inadmissibility cases in the past. And so for the official answers, there are some other tools that we have in our toolbox to make sure that if you apply for immigration to Canada, you do not encounter problems, okay? Having said that, of course, this is about medical inadmissibility. On top of that, you need to qualify for immigration or a visa to Canada. So that's a different story. Assuming that you meet the qualifications for immigration options or visiting Canada options or study permit or work permit, you shouldn't be that much worried about your HIV positive case. It's very unlikely, as I mentioned, only maybe 5% to even less than 5% of HIV cases may encounter problems. But yes, there are the inadmissibility for safety is for syphilis and tuberculosis, as I mentioned, or acute situations. For example, if somebody is suffering from Ebola, then that person will be inadmissible to Canada unless they resolve their issue and then they apply. So in acute cases, then the best practice is to resolve that problem and then apply for immigration or visa to Canada, or put the application on hold, request the officer to put the application on hold and apply and go through the treatment and then apply. Those kind of things, which of course, if I want to talk about them, I can talk about medical inadmissibility for hours. Just another one, I said that safety is also important, safety of Canadians. And by safety of Canadians, somebody that comes to Canada and then endangers other people. And this is mostly about mental health issues. And not everybody who has mental health issues, for example, if somebody is suffering from depression or from anxiety, that person doesn't become inadmissible to Canada. But if somebody has some psychopathic behavior that results in harming other people, that person could be inadmissible to Canada. Or somebody who is an alcoholic and that person has involved in the past in many DUIs, then that person could become inadmissible to Canada on health grounds. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to go into the details more than that. Okay, so the next question, sorry, I missed your answer. If parents of a Canadian citizen have TRP, can they come to Canada? For TRP, generally speaking, the TRP will allow them to travel to Canada, but they need to apply for a travel. Oh, actually, they are immediate family members. No, they could. So generally speaking, they could. But as I mentioned, because the issue is with the airlines and sometimes they decipher it differently, you need to have a bunch of documents presented to the airline to make sure that they will allow you to board. Otherwise, they won't. Okay. So I personally, if I have client of that nature, I will present a cover letter. I explain the situation to the airline, to the immigration authorities. I recommend my client to prepare a bunch of documents to show that they actually they have no issues in terms of coming to Canada. Okay. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by PSW. So if you could elaborate, then I will definitely answer your question. But it's free program. What the status required? I have no idea what PSW is, so I don't know. So can refugee go back to home country after getting citizenship? So, stranger girl, this is a tricky question because when you are applying for a refugee in Canada, you're claiming that I'm applying for a refugee because I have the fear of going back to my home country, you know. And then if you go back to your home country, what does that mean? Does this mean that you misrepresented in the beginning or not? So generally speaking, the misrepresentation is always on the table for the immigration authorities to look into that. But of course, the circumstances of countries change, the circumstances of people change. And especially when people are Canadian citizens, they are protected under Charter of Rights of Canadians in terms of movement. That's why it becomes a complex issue if the government wants to pursue canceling the citizenship of that refugee, etc., etc. The Harper government, the previous government of Canada, had an appetite to go after refugees and cancel their permanent residence or citizenship. They tried to cancel citizenships based on you travel back to Canada, and nowadays that appetite is not there. So I cannot say for sure. Of course, I cannot talk based on the policies of the government. I'm not a representative of the government, but I can tell you is that it's a lot less risky for a Canadian citizen to go back to their home country comparing to somebody who is a permanent resident, because for permanent residents, the situation is different. I had an Afghan client that she was actually waiting for her permanent residence. She just had a travel document, and then her father was dying in their home country, and she actually approached the immigration authorities and requested the permission to go back to her home country, and they allowed her. And eventually she became a Canadian citizen, so a permanent resident and Canadian citizen. So it depends on the circumstances. You also need to consider all the circumstances surrounding that travel. So I would say when you apply for a refugee, you are kind of doomed to the rest of your life because of the claims that you made to become a refugee in Canada. You never ever have a free ticket. But of course, when you become a Canadian citizen, your opportunities and the laws that are behind you are stronger. So if you buy a house in New Brunswick for $300,000 and you're starting to pay your mortgage, can't it consider as part of a $600,000 investment? No, unfortunately, Mr. Will, the simple answer is no. The investment needs to be, if you're talking about New Brunswick business immigration, they are looking at investment in a business, but they want to see people that they actually live in the province. Okay, do you know about conjugal partner? Yes, I do. I have written articles. I have posted videos on the same YouTube channel. I have had clients that they were conjugal partners. So I think I have a good grip of conjugal partners. So conjugal partner is somebody that you have lived, you know more than 12 months. and you have a committed relationship to each other. That committed relationship is an intimate relationship. It means that financial, sexual, emotional, you're related to each other. However, you couldn't live together under the same roof for 12 months for valid reasons. Then you are conjugal partners. And then the sponsorship application is a possibility if one of those conjugal partners is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. So this is a simple answer to that. I have a video about conjugal partners. And if you're interested, you can also book a consultation session with me, because I have had many cases. And I will post the links below here if you want to book a consultation session with me after I'm done with this video. And we can go from there. So, oh, more questions are coming. Look, we have passed 1 hour deadline. So I answered these questions quickly. Very well said, sir. Thanks a lot for your detailed information regarding on my personal issue. I'm a big of yours. Anyway, thank you very much, Endless Walls. Thank you. So Abdullah Hamid, how many screenshots do I need to submit as proof of relationship? Well, there is nothing written about that. I mean, if you look at the document checklist, in terms of the pictures, in the past, because we submitted this amount of pictures. So since mid-December 2016, they requested to limit the number of pictures to 20. So 20 pictures. But in terms of relationship, and documents like your chat history, etc., there is no specific requirements. So I would say the more the better, I guess. Yeah, I know. And that's a hassle. I mean, for spousal sponsorship cases, these are all the discussions that our team will have with you. It goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth before we submit a document that is very, we are happy with it. So can I go back to any country, part of the country, because I have shown the risk from my own parents thing? So a stranger girl, again, beyond what I said, I don't know what to say on top of that. But generally speaking, when you file for refugee, when you talk about the specific country, you're talking about that country. They never say you're not allowed to travel to other countries of the world. The question is that if I'm originally from, say, Cyprus, and I immigrate, I filed refugee in Canada and they accepted, then if I go back to Cyprus, that's all questionable. But if I go to Turkey, for example, if I go to Germany, if I go to Italy, that should be okay. You know, that's the generic answer. Okay, thank you very much for joining this conversation. I truly, truly appreciate joining that. If you want further information, please subscribe to our channel. As I mentioned before, we publish videos, 3 videos every week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On top of that, I do my best to have live sessions every Sunday at 10 a.m. EST. So if you subscribe and enable notifications, you will be notified about all these things, especially with my live sessions. As soon as I go live, they will inform you. You can support me by purchasing my book, 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada. I'm in the process of submitting my dissertation for my second master's degree, which is Master of Laws in Dispute Resolution. When I'm done with that, I'm going to write a second book. So I will soon post a poll on our community and ask you, tell me, what do you want me to write about? And I will write about that, because this 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada, this is a very good overview of the immigration process. You will learn about all different aspects. Believe it or not, if you read this book, you probably know more than 99% population of this world about immigration to Canada. That's how concise and good it is. And it's only 307 pages in total. But I want to write books that are specific to different things, like express entry, work permit, study permit. So I will post a poll soon on our community, and I ask you which subject you would like me to write about. I really appreciate it if you if you participate. And thank you very much for attending my live sessions, watching my videos, sharing them with your friends, visiting our website, and so on. So Endless Waltz, just look me up. So the name of my company is Parsai Immigration Services. Underneath every video on YouTube, if you open the description section, we have the link to our contact form. We have the link to our website, how to book a consultation session with me. All of those are underneath every single video that I post. And also keep that in mind that my consultation sessions are not free, but you can easily contact us. We don't have any offices or agents outside Canada. So if somebody approached you and said that they are from Parsai Immigration Services from outside Canada, don't respond back. We only have employees that they deal with our cases, and we have posted the names and pictures of those employees on our website, so you know who you are contacting. Make sure that authenticate that employee that contacts you. And we also have a franchise office in Edmonton. This has been monitored and managed by David, my good friend, who is also another immigration consultant. He's a regulated immigration consultant. And other than our office in Toronto and our office in Edmonton and our employees, we don't have any agents outside Canada or even inside Canada. So be careful if somebody approaches you, because somebody under my name issued, they said that under my name issued they work permits in Mexico. This is not true. I have already issued a video about this matter. I have contacted the immigration authorities and ICCRC about this. I was recently interviewed by a Spanish news outlet about this. So it looks like that when you become famous, people try to abuse your name. So be careful to contact with us directly. Okay. Right about express entry. Yeah, Mohammed, actually, express entry is on top of my list. I have already prepared the table of contents. But anyways, I want to hear from everyone. But thank you very much, Mohammed, for letting me know. Okay, it's already 1 hour and 16 minutes. I cannot let go. You are the highlight of my Sundays. So I love you all. Thank you very much for attending this session. And I will post my article about the Alberta opportunity for young entrepreneurs in 1 or 2 hours from now. So stay tuned. It will be posted on settler.ca. And also here, please subscribe to our channel and see you next week. Bye.